Hey there everybody, my name is Josh and I'm going to be your host for this week's edition of Forgotten Fighters, where every other Friday we take a look at fighting games that you might have forgotten about. This week we're taking a closer look at ClayFighter for the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis. During the early and mid-90s, fighting games were all the rage. Arguably, two of the biggest franchises to come out of this period were Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat. These two games defined 2D fighters for years to come, albeit both going in different directions. They were so influential that you can even see a sort of cultural divide between the two. Most fighters from Asian countries had a hand-drawn feel to them, using all pixels for their characters, similar to the Street Fighter games. On the other hand, Western countries made fighting games with a more photorealistic design, opting to use real actors and digitizing their movements. ClayFighter was developed by Visual Concepts, now known for their NBA 2K series, and published by Interplay, the original creators of the Fallout franchise. ClayFighter was designed entirely using claymation techniques, and was actually the second in a series of claymation games between the two, the first being a generic platformer by the name of Claymates. ClayFighters was released in November of 1993 for the Super Nintendo, attempting to be a game that brings the intensity of Mortal Kombat gameplay with a kid-friendly environment, a sort of bridge for parents who didn't want their children playing Mortal Kombat. There was a later version of ClayFighters made, called ClayFighters Tournament Edition, which added a tournament mode and some general updates. The Genesis port of this version was released not long after this. So, was ClayFighter really the game that it made out to be? Was it really as hyped as it was? Well, sort of. Let me show you the game first. ClayFighters starts off with the meteors stopping by Earth and deciding to smash into a carnival and, well, cause a ruckus. And it makes them really ugly, nasty people. ClayFighters has quite the interesting cast. They've got an evil Mr. Frosty, they've got a pumpkin ghost, a blob, they've got blue suede goo. Seriously, these are some bottom-of-the-barrel Goonies here. It's not that they're bad, they're all just really, really strange and weird. That being said, how does it play? Well, honestly, kind of forgettable and not that good. ClayFighters takes its control screen layout from Street Fighter, deploying a 6-button scheme. That being said, I found myself only using the heavy buttons because the light and heavy versions of moves didn't really do a lot of damage, and there's not a very good combo system in the game. There's also no training mode, even in the tournament version of the game, which really adds a damper to actually practicing things such as combos and regular moves. As for the graphics, it's alright, but it definitely is not aged well. The game, unfortunately, does not look nearly as good as Mortal Kombat does, and nowhere near as good as Street Fighter. It tries really hard, and it does look like it's all made out of clay, but it doesn't necessarily look like it's made out of good clay. I'll also state that the final boss, End Boss, is really, really lame. End Boss is sort of a group of bubbles that shoots projectiles and grabs you. He's just really out of place and frankly doesn't add anything to the game. The game has an interesting story and relatively alright characters, but End Boss doesn't give you a reason to, well, want to beat him. He's just sort of there as the End Boss. So, why was ClayFighters forgotten? Well, honestly, it was a combination of timing and concept. ClayFighters did go on to have multiple games and multiple sequels even, on multiple systems. However, the problem comes in from the fact that its graphics were subpar, and admittedly, later on in 1994, Killer Instincts came out, and let's be real, everyone knows about that. That being said, ClayFighters does go down as one of those games where people seem to remember it. It really captured a point in their childhood that probably was awesome because their parents wouldn't let them play Mortal Kombat, so they needed something to beat the crap out of each other with. That being said, ClayFighters does have one advantage over pretty much every game up until Killer Instincts at this point in time, and that is one hell of a theme song. Take it away, ClayFighters.